Hey, it's Dean Graziosi, and I know what it's like to want more, desire more, to feel uncertain, scared about your future, but I also know what it's like to have more success than I ever dreamed possible with my finances, my family, my relationships, and I am one of the passionate few. I've been doing sit-down interviews for over 2 decades. Before the internet even existed, I had to do infomercials. One of my older shows was with Larry King, and I've been blessed to be interviewed by some of the world's best. But I have to be honest, Omar is one of the best interviewers I've ever had. In this interview, we talked about business, we talked about personal life, we talked about finances. Most of all, though, we talked about owning your future, especially in these crazy, uncertain times. You can either be like the mouse in the book, Who Moved My Cheese, with your arms crossed, waiting for someone else to fix it. And how's that work out for you? Or you could be the mouse that explores, that pivots, that finds the opportunity in this shift. And that's what we talked about in this interview. I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Passionate Few podcast today. It's your host, Omar, and today I'm super excited because we get to sit down with none other than serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, and educator to millions of people around the world about how they can take their life to the next level. And he's a man who came from very humble beginnings to go on and do that. So today we get into not only his story, but also how you guys can take action on your own life to own your future in every sense of those words. And also, I wanted to let you guys know that if you watch this interview at any point you're going, man, I love this interview. I'd love to share my products, my story, and my business with the world just like this. Well, you're in luck because you actually can apply to do so in the description below by filling out a short questionnaire to see if you'd be a good fit to be interviewed right here on the show, either in person or via Zoom, which would work in partnership with us to help feed 1 million people. Want to find out more? You can apply at any time during or after you enjoy this interview in the description below to be interviewed right here on the show. But with no further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy this powerful interview with none other than the mentor to millions, Dean Graziosi. Enjoy. So thanks so much for being on the show today, Dean.
Oh, good to be here, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having us here in your beautiful home.
Good to have you. Makes it really simple for me for you to come here. So Good to have you.
So I want to get into it. Now, a lot of people have, heard your story. They've seen what you've done in life and business. They know you got the awesome family, you got all the things. But before the quote unquote things, you didn't necessarily know that you could own your life, right? You weren't in a place where you can kind of control things. I know you grew up from very humble beginnings. So can you share with the audience a little bit about your humble beginnings and kind of where the ball started rolling for you as a kid before you kind of became the entrepreneur you're world renowned for and known today?
Yeah. First off, it's great to sit down with you, man. This is our 3rd interview.
Yes.
And I've been watching you grow over the last 3 years, and it's really awesome to watch the impact you're making on the world, man. So
thank you.
Keep up the good work. I mean it.
Thank you.
The world needs this now more than ever. The world is hurting. The world has uncertainty. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, even watching or listening right now, are scared. Mm-hmm. And it's things that you do and people in our genre who do it right that help inspire and give paths and plans for people to see the direction to go from where they are to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to give you some kudos for keeping up and staying consistent to who you are and what your messages are.
Thank you, man.
So it's important.
I really appreciate it.
So I don't like to overshare my story because we all have a story, but I think it does allow you at home listening or wherever you are in the world right now to say, he was where I was, so I should listen to this guy. So I love sharing a story just so you have the framework. Mm-hmm. Here's one thing I'd love to share in this time in history is I think we all evolve sometimes without realizing it because of media, because of outside circumstances that we end up feeling uncertainty, which is a really popular word right now, but it's true. The world completely changed in the last 12 months. A lot of people are uncertain where it's going, what's going to happen, where's life going to be, where are my economics going to be, is my industry going to collapse, or is my industry going to grow?
Right. And
I'd like to start off this interview with just what you said. This is a time in life where we must own our future, right? We must. If things go wrong, it's on us. Mm-hmm. If things go right, it's on us. And it's so liberating when you just say, I'm not going to wait for anybody else. I'm not going to, the book that we all know and has been read 1 million times, it's a short read, is Who Moved My Cheese? Mm-hmm. But it couldn't be more relevant than it is right now. The world shifted. The cheese got moved. Mm-hmm. And what happens, we have a tendency to sit and go, okay, I'm either going to wait for the cheese to come back, or I'm going to see how it changes and wait for someone to fix this. So let's see how this plays out. We don't have time in an emerging world to wait for someone to bring your cheese back or see the version of the cheese. We must come out of our comfort zone, own our future, and go explore and find new cheese. We must develop the muscle to pivot, the muscle to take uncomfortable action, the muscle to move forward. And that's why I'm excited to do this interview, because if even just one person right now listening goes, yeah, I'm not waiting anymore. I must explore. I must investigate. I must pivot to explore and own my future. Then I'm glad you came here today to do this. And for me, humble beginnings are absolutely a true statement. Not because this is an interview, but just for my life. I remember, I could tell you that I lived in a trailer park, which I did until we got evicted from it. Imagine getting evicted from a trailer park. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And I didn't have money. I didn't go to college. I barely graduated high school. I started working on cars in 11th grade, and I worked in a collision shop and drove a tow truck in my early beginnings. That's the humble side. Parents married 9 times. Lots of adversity. You know, we all have our own stuff, so I'll just leave it at that. But I guess a better way to frame it and look through it, Omar, is that I remember what it was like thinking, I don't like this. This just sucks. I watched both my parents work their asses off to make nothing, right? So I realized hard work had nothing to do with it. Because my mom was a hard worker. She got home at 9 o'clock at night. Her back hurt. Her hands hurt. She cleaned houses, cut hair, painted houses. She had nothing, right? My dad worked in a collision shop, worked on cars, painting, come home dirty with paint fumes and a headache from painting too much. Had nothing. So it's like, I just know what it's like to say, I'm not going to settle for that. I don't want that. And it doesn't mean you have to come from horrible beginnings or horrific circumstances to say, where I am is not good enough. I know I was meant for more. Dale Carnegie says it best. The number one plight of the human condition, of the human race, is knowing you have more potential and not utilizing it. And I think that's just the best way to look at it. I just remember being young, watching them struggle and say, I want more. I want to be in control of my life. I want to own my, I don't want to be evicted from a trailer park. I don't want to have to leave someplace because I can't afford it. I don't want to not spend time with my future wife or my children because someone else dictates my life. So for me, that was my inspiration. So maybe you can relate to that wherever you are in your life right now, I'm betting to say, if you're watching Omar, if you're watching us, you just know there's another level. Whether your back's against the wall and you need to move forward, I've been there. Out of money, watching my friends get ahead, watching them go off to college, being envious of their parents buying them a new car and I'm fixing up an old junker, right? Yeah. Like, I know what that feeling is. I also know what it's like to finally get momentum and get sales going and own my own company and get to $100,000 a year and be like, oh my God, but then no, 100's just the start. And what it's like to get $1 million a year and 10 million and 50 million a year. And I know how to, I've failed miserably in between. Like, not just failed, Omar, failed internally to where I had an ulcer in my stomach going, well, you know, you're not smart enough. You're an imposter. You thought you could play in the big leagues, but that's not for you. That's for college people, smarter people, people with family money, people that families support them. My family thinks I'm the nut, crazy one, the black sheep, right? I've had all of those feelings, but I'm kind of on the other side of it now. So I like having these conversations because I felt all of it. I've been, you know, broker than broke and stressed with an ulcer, staying up all night saying, what am I going to do with my life? How is this going to work? And I've been in a place where I get to live in the house of my dreams, partner with Tony Robbins, do really amazing things, start over 13 companies and have more success in my personal life and financial life than I ever could imagine. I'm married to the woman of my dreams. You see my kids running around here. I love being a dad. So I guess that's what makes this interview fun, is because no matter where you are, I promise you I've been there.
I have 2 questions on that. So the first thing is, did you ever think that you would get here, quote unquote? Because a lot of people dream, right? And a lot of people reach out to us. I'm sure you see it, messages, hey, do you have any advice? How do I get ahead in my business, in my finances, in my health, whatever it is? But then there's people who get stuck asking the question and not taking the action. I'm curious, was the young Dean who was hungry for answers and was trying to figure it out, were there times where you doubted and said, maybe I'm just in over my head, or maybe like it's just a fantasy?
Every
maybe it
single
just happens to them.
day.
Yeah.
So not once in a while. So I would love to say, I'd love to share this. Why don't you be vulnerable? That voice still lives inside of me. Right? So
the levels just
now
it's
changed, like, are you playing too big a game? Like, but it's a lie. The voice is a lie. That now in today's world we call it imposter syndrome. There was no even term back then. It's just you doubted yourself. You had self-doubt. Now it's imposter syndrome. But I get it. There's some days where I look and I'm walking in my backyard, looking at my house. I'm like, am I going too big? Like, or flying my family on a private jet and like, maybe it doesn't it doesn't have, it has nothing to do with your success. It has to do with, I believe, this might sound crazy, but I believe I was born a pessimist who's worked my whole life to be an optimist. But if I don't watch interviews like this, if I don't absorb personal development, if I don't do challenges and go through courses and get in masterminds, if I don't immerse myself, I could fall right back to the guy with self-doubt saying, hey, you didn't go to high school, you can barely read, you have dyslexia, nobody in your family has ever been successful. Come on, dude, be happy making $100,000 a year.
Exactly.
Right? It's still there, and it lives there.
I was going to zoom in on that too. Did you find in that time as you were growing that there was a lot of people around you too that were kind of doubting you to where you felt alone, or did you consciously try to surround yourself with people to elevate you early on, say maybe late 20s, early 30s?
Okay, so great question. And this is something that's gonna be hard for you and you guys here helping filming to resonate with this. Because if you want inspiration, right, you're having an off day.
Right.
What do?
Go to YouTube.
Okay.
Exactly.
Who do you watch?
Whoever I want that day, whatever topic I want.
Tony.
Yeah. Tony on confidence.
Tom Bilyeu.
Yeah, whatever.
Like whatever. You go old school, Dale Carnegie, Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn's a go-to for me, right? You got to understand something. When I was your age and younger, in my 20s, there was no internet. There was no YouTube. There was not even MySpace, no Instagram, no Facebook. There was nothing, right? There wasn't even books on audios back then. You couldn't go to Amazon and buy a book on audio, and I can't read really well. I still can't because of dyslexia, but I listen to a book every 10 days now. You gotta understand something, that wasn't there. So I wasn't smart enough to surround myself. The reason I know I doubted myself the most is because when I looked around, nobody in my family had signs of success. And whenever I went for something more that was out of their comfort zone, they weren't there to hurt me, but literally they would sit me down and be like, stop being a dreamer. Wealthy people do this. That's for rich people. That's for smarter people. Dean, you didn't go to college. It was like, Dean, you're trying to be a doctor, but you didn't go to college. It's never going to work.
Yes,
that's the way people looked at it. And I have to tell you, I didn't surround myself with enough people like that. And I look back, I'm like, thank God some kind of burning ember got inserted in my soul that I just knew that they were wrong. Like, not to oversimplify it, but here's what I remember thinking. If I do what they're telling me, I get to live their life. And if I do, I'd like to freaking, I would want to die. Like I loved my parents, but they struggled every day. They struggled in their relationships. They struggled financially. They struggled in relationships with family. And again, your life doesn't have to be that bad, but there was something in me, Omar, that said, if I do what they say, I get what they get, and I can't accept that. And that's probably something I would give you. Like, to this day, I have this little thing that I do when people give me advice. I smile, I say thank you, but I think to myself, if I woke up tomorrow and I was them, how would I feel? And every time I go, hell no, I don't listen. I smile, I nod, but I'm like, you're telling me how to fix my finances, but if my finances look like yours, I'd be upset. You're telling me how to fix my relationship. If I had your relationship, it would be the worst thing in my life. So be careful who you get advice from, because most of it comes from a great spot, right? Your family sits you down and tells you this won't work, stop being a dreamer. It's not because they want to crush your dreams. They think they're protecting you, but they don't make statues of critics. Like, my parents doubted me until I retired both of them. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So
that's beautiful. And then I want to ask too, when you started having success early on, did you, naturally you start meeting more and more successful people. At this stage, you partnered with Tony, you've met some of the most successful people in the world, partnered with them, worked with them. And I'm sure there's times where you have moments, I know interviewing people, I have moments where I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I thought it was this bigger than me fantastical thing, right? I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
You see Tony Robbins or something like that, and you're like, oh my God, I could never get there. I could never, right? And then you meet them, and then they have the same vulnerabilities that you did, or the same stories. And you're like, shit, they were just as insecure at one time as I was. It's just those little steps, the trajectory of those little steps over time goes in a different direction. So my question to you is, as you've climbed the ladders of success and met all these amazing people, what are some common denominators among some of the most successful people in the world that the average person watching or listening to this would never even get to know unless they're in a room with them, that can kind of humanize
really
them?
Great,
you know what I mean?
Great question. It makes me think the first time I was fortunate enough to spend a week on Richard Branson's island, right? And most people
Virgin,
know super Virgin Atlantic guy, Virgin Airlines, Virgin everything. He has his own island. Back in the day, it was always on MTV Cribs and stuff like that. So it wasn't because I was super cool and he just called me. I raised a whole bunch of money for his charity. And the thank you was, come to my island, right? On Necker Island. he happened to be there that week. And I get up early. I'm a 4:35 a.m. guy. And so
What time do you go to sleep? Curious.
10.
Okay.
Right? So I'm waking up early, and he's like, hey, I see you up early. Tomorrow morning, do you want to sail? Do you know how? I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I got no idea. Let's go, right? So the next morning, I meet him at the dock, and we sail around the island. And it was just him and I for like 2 hours.
Wow.
Right?
You and Richard Branson?
Me and Richard Branson. So we get to sail the island for 2 hours, just the two of us. And we're going on the island. And that was one of those moments that you just said. I'm like, this guy's exactly like me. Like it's a millimeter shift. Like, a couple of things is the people I met that are the most successful, it didn't fall in their lap. And I know you don't believe that or else you wouldn't have followed Omar, but there's a lot of people that think you got lucky, someone left it to you, all those things. None of it is, I've never seen that. I hardly have ever met anybody successful and go, oh yeah, dad left it to me and I just spent it. Or I got lucky, I invented something, got rich overnight. They all struggled, they all went. But the one common denominator is finding a way, this is gonna sound so cliche, to just get back up and learn from your mistake and keep going. I believe most of us quit on the 2-yard line. Like we got all the way down the field and finally this entrepreneur thing's not gonna work. Screw it, I'm going back to what I know.
Right.
And if you only knew it was just one more failure away. Like just think of all the failures in your life, and I use this term too much and maybe you've heard it, but it's paying success tax. And some of us have to pay success tax with 20 failures. And number 21 is our home run.
Right.
But most people give up on 18.
Right.
Some of us, listen, there's some people have 3 failures and they go on and create Facebook, right? Awesome. But some of us might have to go through 100 failures. And if you just go, no matter what, when it doesn't work, I have to learn from it. I have to get back up and keep going because I deserve more. I can be more. God meant me, the universe, whatever you believe in, you were designed to be more, bigger, and better. Maybe my path is I have to go through 20 failures. My whole family thinks I'm nuts. I got to go down to 0 money in my bank account, but I know I'm meant for more. So one is this burning desire to know you're going to get there, even if there's no sign of it. Like one thing you got to realize, there was no vision that I'd be this life. There was nothing that said you'd be there. There was no book that said you're guaranteed it. There was no family member. I just believed it. And I had to convince myself to believe it because I also had the inner self-doubt saying, we can't do this. We're not smart enough, right? So that's one. But here's a term, and this is why I love this, own your future. It's why I love that Tony Robbins and I are doing this challenge about own your future. This is one that every single successful person I've ever met has, and this is the hard one, and this is the one I really want you to think about today. If nothing else in this interview, you take this. There is 0 chance for you to reach your full potential if you don't take uncomfortable action. And I love that word uncomfortable action because when you go for your full potential, when you start the business, Omar, I could interview you right now. I guarantee there was times like, I don't know if I can make this work, or what if I lose everything, or my family thinks I'm nuts, and I have this degree and I'm not using it, and I'm going over here. And like, there's been a million times you doubted yourself. But what did you have to do that next day? You had to get up even when you weren't feeling it. Even when you doubted yourself, you still had to take uncomfortable action. You don't get to the promised land until you face the things you fear the most, you avoid the most, you're scared of, and take the action even though there's no sign it's going to work. Courage is not moving forward in the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward and you're still scared to death. So if you want to ask me at this age, at this time of my life, what is the number one thing successful people have? Is they kept moving forward even when they were scared to death. People told them they were crazy and there was no sign it was going to work.
I find that to be totally true. And also I think one big thing, especially in this generation of people in their, late teens, 20s, early 30s, their conception of time, right? Their perception of time.
That's a true story.
So like in the micro, I know a lot of entrepreneurs that, get into the online business, online space at 21, and if by 24 they haven't broke $1 million, they're pissed off, they're jaded or whatever, which in the micro, 3 years may feel like forever because you're in it, right? But in the macro, I'm sure you look at, a decade at a time, right? Bigger time horizons. And so, like, I'm sure there was times where if you, like, at the time evaluated 3 years, you're like, oh shit, this sucks. But in retrospect, you needed those 3 years of throwing spaghetti at the wall to find what home run for year 4 through 10 was. Do you find that the most successful people, because I've seen this to be true, spend less time between steps of action? For example, let's say they try something and they fail. The average person will get in their head about the failure. Oh my God, why did I do this? Da, da, da. But somebody else, like yourself, you might be like, okay, screw it, let's just try another ad. Let's just read the
You know what's
speed
so good?
between
You know what's
steps.
so good about
Yeah.
you doing all the great interviews that you have is you get to correlate all this.
Yes.
And you get to
Deduce.
subconsciously, you probably don't even realize your brain is going, wow, these last 20 interviews, these 3 things were in common,
Right.
and intuitively, it's going into your business and your life.
Exactly,
That's why I'm so happy you do this because, and that's why I'm so happy about self-education and learning from other people. It's the fastest way to the end result. Like, how much faster do you think your business has grown because you got to interview great people?
Oh, I'm a kid in an intellectual candy store.
Exactly. So think about it.
Yeah.
You get to be in the knowledge industry, the self-education, whatever you want to call it, and think how much quicker you get to grow because you get to learn from others who've already been there rather than just books or the impossible task of learning on your own.
Yeah, or just trial and error, not knowing where you are in space.
Yeah, so, but to answer your question, absolutely. Like, I've watched so many people work so hard on something, and then when it fails or it's not working, that thing needs to pay them back. So they just stay with it so long until they get so frustrated and so burned out. I'm talking to some of you right now that you finally go, I'm done. So doing your own thing doesn't work. Doing online doesn't work.
Right.
But if you don't give up, this is the best lesson I think you can take. If you don't quit, those nightmares are actually the things you'll celebrate the most because you built the grit. You figured out what didn't work. I know this, again, sounds so cliche, but maybe hear it for the first time today, is your biggest failures are the things that you learn the most and grow from if you can have the nerve to do it. So my daughter pitches, is a softball pitcher, right? And when she was 12, she's really good. And she was really good at 12, naturally.
Yeah.
Right? And I say naturally because now she's 14 and now she's got to work for it. And I told her, I said, at 12, you could be gifted. At 14, she's my height.
Yeah.
You were playing little girls. Now you're playing women,
Yeah.
right?
Big
Right?
leagues.
So I remember she was 11 or 12 and they're playing a really important game. And it's a little tournament. And she plays the first one, kicks butt, like just strikes, doing amazing. The girls can't hit her. She's throwing fast. This is 11 or 12 years old, right? She gets to the second game. And these girls are just beasts. And they're hitting the ball off her. She gets in her head. She starts throwing ball after ball. Finally, she gets off the field. Coach takes her out. She cries, and she's in the dugout crying. And I go grab her, and I say, come here, let's talk. And I remember we walked out behind my car, and I had like an SUV, so nobody could see us. We're behind the SUV. And she's crying. And this is what she said to me. She goes, Dad, this is too much pressure for an 11-year-old or 12-year-old. She goes, the first game, there was no pressure because she kicked ass, right?
Yeah.
But she's like, I lost this for the team. I let the entire team down. I let my coaching. This is too much pressure. I want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And all I said to her is, I said, if you want to quit, that's a solution. That's one answer. I said, and I get it. And I'm so sorry you feel that way, babe. And I said, but do you think a lot of people quit in a place like this? And she's like, yeah, probably. I'm like, and do you think they regret it or ever move forward? And she's like, and she stopped crying for a second. And I said, you have 2 options. You want to quit? Cool, I'll support you. Let's find another support. I'm your dad. I'm not the dad that forces you. So we can quit today. In fact, I'll go tell your coach if you want.
Yeah.
I said, or what if we took a complete opposite approach? How do you think you can make it so you never have to feel that way again? She's like, Dad, I'm not up for a lesson right now. Dad, this is just really hard. I'm like, but hey, you're the one, you're crying out. What else do you think on the complete opposite end of the spectrum of saying, this is too much for a 12-year-old, I want to quit. What's the opposite side? And I said, what's some things? She goes, I don't know. I'm like, what's some things? I don't know. I said, if you had to know, what would it be? She's like, I could practice more. I'm like, okay. She's like, I could get a pitching coach. I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. She already had one, but she's like, I could get a better one and twice a week. And she started saying 3 more things. And I'm like, if we did that, do you think maybe you could avoid that? And I think, do you think you could set yourself apart from 98% of the world who would quit today? Because I see it. You have every right to quit. And you know what? You could tell the story for the next 20 years. You know, I was a good pitcher at 12 years old, but it just got too much pressure.
Yeah.
Do you want, and this is what I said to my daughter, do you want that jackass story? Because you know how many Uber drivers I get in and Uber drivers that say, oh my God, I had a business 20 years ago, but my employees screwed me over. The economy shifted and damn Jimmy Carter or Ronald Reagan or Bill Clinton or Obama screwed my life up, and screw that. You know how many times they told that shit ass story? Because they gave up. They didn't own their future. They blamed someone else. You could blame the umpire, you could blame those big girls, or you could take ownership and say, I need to practice more, I need to step up, and if I get better, I never have to lose like that again. You get to choose. Which girl do you want to be when you grow up? And it was heavy for a 12-year-old.
I can imagine, yeah.
Heavy, and like her eyes glazed over when I was about 3/4 of the way through, but she got most of it.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, she was practicing twice a week, and she got her game kicking ass.
Yeah.
And the whole point is, how many of us get our asses handed to us? Things go wrong. People screw you over. Your wife or husband doesn't support you. The partner lets you down. And you have every excuse in the world to give up, and no one would blame you. After this, our mutual friend Nick is coming here. He has every excuse in the world to not do anything. He was born with no legs, born with one arm. He's got every excuse to say, yeah, poor me. And no one would blame him.
Right.
But he's not, because he took ownership of his future. He saw that the only way to where he wants to go is to take that uncomfortable action, to move forward, to be courageous when there's no sign it's going to work out.
And when you look back, what for you was the biggest obstacle for you to come over, right? For you to kind of tackle, because obviously there's business, there's relationships. Obviously, I know you got your family, you got Luca, right? So there's evolutions of it at every level, right? Even though I'm sure you have challenges today where you're implementing this stuff. It's not like you just get there, you own your life, and you're done. It's a constant.
Yeah, bigger success, bigger problems.
Exactly. More money, more problems.
Yeah.
So for you, on a personal, vulnerable level, what has been the biggest challenge for Dean Graziosi that the average person wouldn't know or would be surprised to find out that,
it's a really good question. I like getting questions.
Too.
I like getting questions that I've never been asked. I've never been asked that before.
That's what I do best.
And I have to tell you, you know what it is? I still have a fear of going completely broke.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's probably happened to you a couple times.
It has, not in well over a decade.
Yeah.
And I didn't go completely broke, but just the economy shifted. I owned tens of millions of dollars worth of real estate, and the real estate bubble burst, and a lot of things happened at once. But it's a fear that I remember intimately. It's ingrained in my soul that when I went to school some days, I didn't have lunch money. Right? And I tell my friends I wasn't hungry. My dad couldn't come up with $1 to give me lunch money. There was days I went to school with nickels and pennies. 95 cents was lunch back then.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't eat lunch because I'm not pulling out a big wad of pennies and nickels to pay for my lunch, right?
Right, yeah.
And I remember what it's like to watch my mom work hard and have nothing. And now I support my mom and my dad and hundreds of employees and things like that. And I think deep down what was hard was every time I go to another level, there was this lingering feeling of like, oh, did you go too far? What if you lose it all? And I don't know how to explain it. And the crazy part about it, the crazy part about it is it's been my driver and my kryptonite, right? The driving part of it is it motivates me to keep going forward, but you don't always want to be driven from the pain side, right? We also want to be pulled towards the pleasure.
Yes.
And so I've had to work on that because I feel blessed. I could quit everything right now and I'd be good for the rest of my life. I don't have to do anything more. So the chances of that happening are very rare. Could it? Of course, anything could happen. But that still lives in me and I have to fight it all the time. And it sounds like, ooh, poor rich guy problem. It's not. It's truly something that would keep me up at night and like, did I push it too far? What if it all goes away? What if I can't take care of my family? It's a weird, crazy thing. And other obstacles are just taking the uncomfortable action towards the next bigger thing when your brain goes, hey, look, we made it. We're pretty cozy here.
Right.
Why don't you just chill?
Right.
Right? Why don't you just chill? But that's not what I was designed to be, and I don't think any of us are. I don't think it's the destination. I'm not, again, cliche, but it's really not. You don't get to an end point and say, I have enough, I'm good. Well, what are you going to do? Like, we're put on this earth to contribute, to grow, to impact others, to help the world become a better place. I know all of us want that deep down, so I don't ever want to quit.
And I love that you talk about ownership because there's a cool quote that says, everybody is self-made, but only the successful will admit it. Right?
Yeah,
Everybody's
that's a great one.
But
Wow, I
only
never
the
heard that
successful
quote.
will admit it. Yeah. Now, before we switch gears, I want to ask, I want to talk about relationships real quick, but I want to hone in on one more point here. As you kind of reflect on your momentum and the different areas you've grown, have you found that as you become more and more successful, it becomes more and more challenging for you to relate to others? Or do you make sure to kind of surround yourself with only people that get it at that level? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you go to the average function or meet the average person, they're probably a completely different ballpark. They're probably worried about their bills and stuff. You got, 100 plus employees or however many 100 employees, you got a payroll and all this, and everything you got going on. So I'm curious, what do you do to kind of keep yourself calibrated, keep yourself grounded? Is it family? Is it relationships?
Yeah, really.
What for you has worked over the years?
Dude, good job today on your questions, man. I like it.
Because I'm trying to really dig in.
Yeah,
you know?
no, but it does happen. And I don't think it happens. What I would perceive is that if you're friends with someone since high school and you made it and you kept growing, I would bet to say that if you separated from this high school or college buddy, they would think, oh, we've got money now, too good for me.
Right.
And that's really not the case. Not even a little bit. It's different priorities, different perspectives.
Yeah.
My circle has definitely shrunk. And not because by choice. I still have a dear friend that's been my friend since 4th grade. You know, and he lives in New York, so I only see him a couple times a year. Dear friend, we still talk once a week. Love the guy. Completely different worlds, but he's one of the few people I stayed in contact with, and not because I pushed him out, just because when you have a growth mindset and you're continuing to grow, it's uncomfortable for certain people around you. It's also uncomfortable when someone sees success happening on a level that is hard to imagine.
Sure.
But from the internal side, I've never pushed anybody away. I'm just so busy that for me, everything is about my wife and my children and my team and making an impact on the world.
Exactly.
So I think as people grow, if they're continuing to grow, and no one's ever asked me this, so I'm taking a little bit to get the answer out. Usually I'd have an answer like this because I love when I'm challenged to come up with an elegant answer. But what you must do as you grow, and I want to share this with everyone, must do when you have success, is you really got to identify what success means to you. Like you must. Because right now, I have more opportunity. It's crazy. It's like when you need money from the bank, they won't give it to you. When you have plenty, they offer it to you, right?
Yeah.
When you want an opportunity, but you're not successful yet, you can't find one. Then you get successful and the opportunity comes every 3 seconds, right? So my opportunities far outweigh my capabilities right now. We want to invest in this. I have people that want to give me percentage of their companies just to be on the board to help them with their marketing. There's so many things. There's charitable events, and I want to send a jet to pick you up and fly you, spend one day at my company, and then we'll go this and like all this fancy stuff. And all of it can be seducing. But it's not to me because I really identified what's important to me. My wife and my son, you might hear him actually scream here once in a while. He's almost a year old right now. And my older kids, 14 and 12-year-old, they're my number one priority. That's if I'm not an engaged husband, if I'm not an engaged dad, if I'm not out catching for my daughter playing softball or having catch with my son or picking them up from school, then I'm not successful to me. Doesn't mean you might not even have kids yet, but that's success to me. Being a role model and a leader for my team, not a boss, that's success to me. Being innovative and impacting people's lives and doing it with my dear friend Tony Robbins, who we collaborate on a daily basis. Like impacting lives when people need it the most, oh my God, that lights me up. The truth is, Omar, I say no to everything else. I know this is a different answer than what you asked. But since I say no to everything else, I kind of say no to a circle of friends other than the people I work with. I don't go to the country clubs. I don't do fundraisers. I don't go to the Oscars and the Emmys, even though I'm invited to all this crazy stuff. I don't do any of that. I don't go out and get bottle service. I don't go on golfing trips. I don't go on boys trips. I don't even go on hunting trips or anything like that. There's nothing I do, and some people would think that's boring, but I love what I do as a business. So I don't need a hobby, right? And I love that I've identified success to me as at the end of my life, I know for me, I'm not going to say that I make an extra 10 million or 100 million. I'm going to say that I leave my children empowered with the tools to have a fulfilled life, not just money, right? So that's what's important to me, and that gets my attention. So in that, when I get invited to birthday parties or I get invited to a weekend in Vegas with the boys and I say no, I believe that their perspective is maybe he's too much of a big shot for us. But simultaneously, I just know what's important to me. There's no bottle service. There's no nightclub at this phase. In my 20s, hell yeah, I used to fly to Miami and party all night. I dance on tables and have bottle service. But to me, that's not there. So I want to just give you a different perspective than just saying, your circle shrinks. It does, but it's not on purpose. It's not deliberate. It's just inevitable.
Did you find that you had more momentum in your personal success when money stopped being your only metric of the ideal success thing?
Absolutely.
Like, I know a lot of people,
Absolutely.
you know, even for me, it's like when I started focusing on fitness or these lateral things, by the time you come back to the business, you're in a refreshed place. Sometimes, like, going for a 45-minute workout before you work for an hour could do more than working for 5 hours, right? Because
True
you're in
story.
an
You get a
elevated
different
place.
state, right?
So-
Different flow.
Yeah, exactly. So for you, have you found, I guess what I'm trying to dig down is because a lot of people ask us, we get questions from all over the world, and I want to really illustrate the point that, do you think that the work to get to wherever you want to be is harder, that the physical work is harder, or the mental work of getting yourself to keep going? You know, being on this side
Yeah.
of success, which do you think was harder? I'm sure both are challenging,
Yeah.
but which one is the bigger challenge as you see it?
Mental.
100%, right?
100%,
So it's not the
not even a
mechanic
question.
of do this or the client or build
And-
the thing or hire the guy. It's more about getting yourself to get back on, try again.
Yeah, so a couple things.
Yeah.
So think of this. Your best thinking got you where you are now, right? So the thinking that got you here is not the same thinking that'll take you there. So if we are not always working on our mental fitness, expanding our mind, challenging our own beliefs on a regular basis, we can get a certain level of success and then hit a plateau and wonder why. It has nothing to do with the economy or what president or what the interest rate is or what the stock market's doing. It has to do with what's going on in here, right? It'd be like a couple different options. You could go to the gym for a year like an animal, look great, but if you quit, it fades, right? You might be in decent shape. You could also go to the gym 3 days a week and do the exact same exercise, never changing the weight, never changing the routine, doing what you do. You're still going to the gym, but your gains will stop, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
Or you could be the person that goes to the gym on a regular basis and you switch it up. Sometimes it's Pilates, sometimes it's, racquetball, sometimes it's weight, it's hiking, it's swimming, right? They're the people that are like in just amazing shape because they're mixing it up, right? I want you to think about that when it comes to your mental conditioning, right? Is if we're not taking in new beliefs, if we're not taking in new ideals, if we're not upgrading our thinking, then we'll get stuck in a rut and not even realize why things aren't growing.
And start
right?
blaming the him, her, the environment, politics.
Because what happens, God, you're so spot on. It's like, here's the worst thing you could do is you get to a certain level of success and it's me.
Right.
And then all of a sudden shit goes sideways and it's them.
Right, yeah.
Right?
It's
If
true.
you're starting to blame the president, if you're starting to blame the stimulus check, if you're blaming anything else besides the person in the mirror, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. A massive disservice. So you have to work on mental conditioning on a regular basis. And I think the byproduct of that is, you have to stay in shape. Like you can't just work on your mind and not your body.
Right.
So I think if you work on your mental conditioning, the byproduct will be you work on your body more.
Very true. Now let's talk about relationships, right? Now this is an area a lot of people don't really talk about too often, so I'm really excited to kind of dive in. Obviously, I'm sure Mr. Graziosi has been a popular guy with the ladies throughout your years. Obviously now you're married and you have kids and you've kind of been to where a lot of men and women entrepreneurs are in their journey, right? And it's so important to have a significant other that supports you and is there for you. I think entrepreneurs actually have the highest divorce rate in the world, understandably so with the kind of stresses that can come on. So in your experience, what have you found to be not to be generic, but what have you found to be the kinds of core things that you've seen in successful relationships? Because you've seen them at high levels, whether it's Tony and Sage, or I'm sure hundreds of couples you've seen, people that work, maybe your own experiences of relationships that did work or didn't work as initially planned. What advice do you have for men and women around the world about how to have a high quality relationship in life and business?
Yeah, so I also know.
Loaded question, right?
No, but I went through a divorce,
Right.
so I know the opposite side. I know what you could do wrong. So today,
Trial and error,
today I'll share though what's right. My wife Lisa, you met her 3 years ago when we did that interview, and I fall more in love with her every day. We fall more in love with each other on a regular basis, but it takes as much work in that relationship as it does my businesses. And I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we put so much work into our businesses and the startup and the scaling and all of that and the mental fitness that we just park the relationship on side and say, just give me this time. And I promise when we get there, and we're always going to this destination, and you're parking the relationship and say, when we get there, we're going to celebrate. Yeah, I promise. Mwah, vacation, great. Now I'm back. And we forget that. And what I want to encourage everybody to say is, it's like, what comes first? The happiness? We're waiting for we're delaying gratification. We're delaying our happiness. We're delaying our love. We're waiting until that next level. And I want to tell you, I'm a better man. I'm a better human. I'm faster. I'm stronger. My business has exponentially grown since I am in the most amazing relationship, and it's worth every bit of effort. Because to have someone who's got your back, who loves you unconditionally, who knows that if I fail, she's got me. If I succeed, she applauds me. If no matter what I do, I have that support. I feel like Superman. And for years, I felt like Superman, but alone, right? I'd get done with a thing and go up in my room and be like, but now I have this other half that's there supporting me. So how do I keep that? Like, can I tell you, I'll tell you a little secret about my relationship. You know what I love the most about my wife? There's a million things. But if I walk in a room, if she's in that room before I'm there, if I walk in that room to this day, we've been together for years. If I walk in a room, that woman's eyes are on nobody but me. She looks at me like it's the first time she ever saw me.
Wow.
And I can't even explain to you what that means.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I love that. As a man, I can understand that. Yeah.
Anything that happens, that woman's eyes are on me. She adores me and loves me. Did that happen by a magic trick? Hell no. Because I worked on me before I met her. I just didn't meet the perfect person. I knew that I needed to become a better human, a better man to attract that kind of woman. And then to have that kind of woman and keep it, that's the whole next level. So a couple of quick things, and this is just coming top of mind. One, stop keeping score in your relationship. What happens is, think about and Tony Robbins says this the best, if you treated the end of your relationship like the beginning of your relationship, there'd be no end.
Yeah, if you did what you did at the beginning of a relationship, there wouldn't be an end.
There wouldn't be an end, right? So I think about that all the time. And keeping score means sometimes you will do more for your other half. You'll help with the baby. You'll take the kids to school. You're funding the whole place on your own. You're bringing in the money. You're working 80 hours a week. And maybe there's a time where your other half is not doing that. What happens is we start building resentment and go, wow, I'm doing all this. I'm growing. I'm working on my personal development. I'm working out. He's not doing shit. He's not doing it. And all of a sudden we build this little bit of resentment that starts as a little ember and it grows and grows and grows until finally little things, you start being snappy. You don't respect each other.
Right.
You walk in the room and your other half doesn't even look at you like, hey, how was your day? Right? And to me, here's what I know is I've converted feeling love when I receive it. Now, this might sound crazy. Maybe you're not there yet. And it's maybe because I'm 52 years old and I messed up relationships in the past. So I get that.
How bad did you mess them up?
Bad.
Yeah.
Right? Work was my number one priority. I was on the road all the time. It's like work was everything. Right? But let me tell you, as simple as this sounds, is I've found a way to feel love for my wife when I give her love, not when I receive it. As crazy as that sounds. Because what happens when someone does something wrong, someone was a little distant, they were late, they looked like they were flirting, like something happens, we start getting distance and we're subconsciously waiting for them to fix it. And you'll give them love back when they step up, when they fix the problem, when they become better, when they do the thing they said they were going to do. And what I found is, it's hard as hell. But if I step up the love I have, step up the caring I have, even when it doesn't feel balanced, when I'm not keeping score, if I find a way to love the fact and feel love when I give it to her, that's why when I walk in a room, my wife looks at me like I'm the only human being alive. Because I found a way to feel love when I'm there for her, when I find her love language, and I make sure I speak into that love language and support her, support the badass woman that she is. And if you don't keep score, it's just so liberating, right? But I found it takes a lot of nerve to do that because you feel like, well, he took advantage of me or she took advantage of me. I gave so much of me. It's like,
especially as a man with ego, right?
Yeah, it's like I gave her all that and damn it, I built this house. I gave her everything. She doesn't have to work. And then I get that. It's like, don't look at it that way. And I have to tell you, who's a great example for me because he's a dear friend. And I'm sorry if I keep bringing him up, but he's 9 years older than me. It's Tony Robbins. Tony was in a relationship that didn't work out prior.
Right.
Him and Sage have 22 years of the best relationship you could ever imagine.
Right.
Those two still, 22 years in, we were just at dinner at their house last week. She's sitting on his lap. They look like they met last week.
Aww.
But they both have figured out, and I model it, figured out, how to love each other unconditionally and literally fight on how they could do more for each other rather than saying, you know, all last week I took care of Tony. He worked 20-hour days. I brought him lunch. I brought him dinner. I answered his calls. I rubbed his damn feet. And I didn't even get an I love you. Screw that. I'm going to wait till Tony steps it up. That's not the way Sage looks at it. Sage is like, I love this man. I'm just going to overlove him. He's working hard this week. Let me love him more. And all of a sudden, you'll see Tony, he'll call me. He's like, my damn wife. I barely talked to her this week. She loved me so much. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to take her out. We're going to go to dinner. I'm going to go do a picnic. It's this, we can wait to be equal or we can just flood it. And here's the thing. If you flood and you become the best version of you for 90 days, 6 months or a year and nothing changes on the other side, then maybe you got to make different choices in that relationship, right?
I love that, man. And then also, what about, just to zoom in here, what about when it comes to finding the right partner? Obviously, you know, you've dated, you met people throughout your time. What are signs that you think are kind of red flags or things that you find to be critical things that are important versus things that are kind of like,
really good question. So first off.
For men and women.
This is for everybody. First off, here's what I'd say is usually the person that messes up a relationship is the person you see looking in the mirror, right? So it's like we don't realize that we bring baggage from our parents from examples that we had, past relationships. We bring in certain things. So I know when my last relationship ended and I wanted this, what I have, I knew I had to really look in the mirror and say, what are some of my habits? What are things that I've done? What has pushed people away? What am I stubborn about? What did I learn from my dad? What did I learn from my mom that needs to be fixed? So first thing is really look into what you contributed to the last relationship that didn't work out, right? But then secondly, and I did this exercise, is I literally wrote down what was an absolute must in my next relationship. An absolute must.
Yeah, I remember you gave me this advice.
And on the other side, because it's true, and I still have the list someplace. On the other side, I wrote down what is absolutely unacceptable. And to have the nerve to say, I am not going all in until I find that person. That's the hardest part. Because I have to be honest, when I wrote that list, and I know I shared that with you, when I wrote that list, I said, I'm going to be a kick-ass single dad for the next 20 years. Like I literally, because I wrote on there, I will not be with, it's unacceptable unless a woman will love my children like I do. That's really difficult. Someone who will get along with my ex, we're not going to have this fighting thing that puts children first. Like I put some really tough things on there, right? And I dated before my wife, and I remember 3/4 of the list there, and then like, oh, you have kids? Oh yeah, that's cute. I could just feel it, and I'm like, ain't no way. No way.
Check that off the box.
It's not going to happen. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them.
Right.
Maybe they wanted to meet, they should have met someone without kids so they could have their own life and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, their own list or their own dreams,
So I think having the nerve to look in the mirror, to fix that person first, and then having the nerve to write down what you absolutely must have and what absolutely is unacceptable, and to be able to stick to that, I think the universe helps you out when you do that.
Very cool. Now, the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is confidence. I find that so often in life people struggle, and people might hear confidence, and it's not necessarily the way you speak, right? Because people can be more mellow and be confident. People can be loud and be confident. But the reality is, if you don't have strong beliefs, you know, Tony recommends this book called The Magic of Believing. And I actually read it just because Tony recommended it, so I flew through it. I believe it's by Claude Bristol.
It is.
And it talks about, you know, the importance of belief and how confidence and belief, kind of like you said, the universe helps you out. You know, the fact that I had confidence when I had no production experience, now we're in your house sitting down for our third interview and you're doing this amazing challenge to help people own their life, right? That took you having courage, me having courage, them having courage. So I want to talk to you about what advice you recommend people do to grow their confidence in the face of adversity, right? Maybe people are starting a business, but they're, you know, they start, stop. Maybe their, you know, health, start, stop. And that mental battle that you were talking about overcoming is rooted in confidence. So what advice does Dean Graziosi have on how people can build their confidence?
Yeah, you get a lot of great advice on how to build your confidence. But I want to start I love going upstream to find the root cause that can help really, because we all have confidence that lives inside of us, right? Confidence isn't something you're born with. I mean, that just comes out. It lives in us. We're born with it, but we're not born sharing it. We have to open it up. It's like a power plant. It doesn't have energy. It creates energy. We have confidence, but we have to let it come out. So how do you do that? So there's a million different ways, but one thing I would say is spend the next week identifying the things that take your confidence away. Again, such simple information like duh, no, but no, we don't realize, like pen and paper or in your phone, in your memo, in your notes, is write down the things that when you watch it, you don't feel as confident, or you're around it, or you hear it, right? I say this all the time, but if you watch the news 5 hours a day, do you feel confident? Hell no.
No, yeah.
The world's going to hell in a handbasket, right? If you listen to your negative friend who tells you you're a dreamer, to get real, that you're never going to find the magical man that you want in your life, or you're never going to make the money you want. If you listen to him enough, maybe you're strong enough to keep most of it away. I guarantee some of it dings your confidence a little bit. Your parents tell you it's time to go back to the job and stop trying to do this business. You might not listen, but it dings your confidence a little bit. You watch the news, you do, and if these are cumulative, and all of a sudden one day they were just enough. There were these small micro pieces that built up enough to go, I'm not confident I'm going to stick in this shit relationship. I'm not confident I'm not going to try my own business. And you don't even see that day coming. You just turn around and it's 5 years later and you didn't do crap. You had 1 foot out the door. You were planning your escape for the relationship for 5 years, or you were planning going to start the business for 5 years, but you never did it because the confidence wasn't there, because you're surrounding yourself with little incremental things that rob your confidence. But what's the complete opposite of that? What can you do and who can you surround yourself with that build your confidence? If you don't have the friends, like I didn't have this option, but you guys do, spend time on YouTube. I listen to a book every single day of my life. I'm listening to an audio every single day that's building my confidence, that's giving me new ways of thinking, that's training my capabilities. I still take courses. I'm in masterminds. I run masterminds. We're doing this huge challenge with Tony. Over 5 days, we have some of the greatest speakers on the planet. It's a free challenge to own your future, to gain capabilities, to go, hell yes. Like, we must do those things to empower. Again, I use these cliche words, but I believe we have an inner villain and an inner hero. And whatever one you feed is going to be in control, right? There's that old story about the 2 wolves, right? If you feed the inner villain, that self-doubt, with your negative friends, watching the news, parents who love you but unsure what you do, then that's going to be in charge, and you're going to play small, and you're going to wonder why you're not winning. Because the opportunity to focus is always there. We can always focus, but we can always focus on what's right and what could go right, and where we could go, and what we do have left. Or we can focus on what was taken away, or what won't work, or what other people believe. Our choice is the focus that we have, and our life is nothing more than the accumulation of our focus and our beliefs, right? So, with that said, how do you build your confidence? Ready for this brilliant answer? Find the things that take your confidence away and do less of it. And find the things that build your confidence and do more of it. And foundationally, there's nothing that can shift your confidence more than that.
I love it, man. Beautifully put. All right, last question I have. Where can people find out more information about the Own Your Future Challenge, and what's it about, and what are the dates, just so people can get filled in?
So Tony and I have done a couple challenges this year. The last one we did, we put 850,000 people in it. It was the New World, New You Challenge, 157 countries. We changed lives all around the world. Now we're going for 1 million people in a time when uncertainty is so high, in a time where people need to pivot, need to shift. The cheese was moved. It's time to move. People are unsure where to go, and who better than Tony? And I feel blessed to be partners with Tony, but we brought in some amazing speakers and friends of ours and world leaders. Just today found out that Serena Williams is joining us. We got all kinds of great people joining us. But what we're going to do over 5 days is show you how to own your future, especially when it comes to your economics, and how to shift. The world has changed. And if you're not shifting into the new economy, the shifting economy, you could be left behind in the old, outdated economy. And we just know that. And if you know where Tony is in his life right now and where I'm at in my life, we just want to serve at the highest level, to give people the capabilities we wish we had. So we decided to do the Own Your Future 5-day challenge. It starts on May 11th. Put it in your calendar. And here's what you need to do. Go to Own It 20. So OWNIT, then the numbers, 20.com, and reserve your spot for this challenge. It's not kind of free. It's completely free. And you're going to want to be there live. It is, you can't imagine how empowering it is to be live with hundreds of thousands of people all locking arms saying, we got this. So if you're someone that says, I'm sick of other people controlling my future, I'm sick of not knowing where to go, I'm sick of not having the confidence, and then most of all, not knowing where to pivot to, what to do, then go to ownit20.com, register for that challenge. I promise you'll be thankful you watched this interview.
Absolutely, and we'll put a link in the description below for it as well, so you guys can check that out, and I will see you there. Last thing before we wrap up, we play a game called First Things First. I don't know if you remember the game. It's a word relation game. I'm going to rifle off a quick word or phrase. You just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind in relation to it.
Okay.
The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice.
All right.
So I'll say something, you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind.
Okay.
So number one, your new baby, Luca.
Heaven.
To your wife, Lisa.
Lucky man.
The number one lesson that COVID and the whole 2020 situation taught you about business and life.
Flexibility is king.
Your biggest vulnerability present day today.
Work too much.
Good problem to have. Number 5 would be the biggest misconception that you think most people have about money now that you're on this side of the fence. Maybe the young Dean Graziosi who was like, man, maybe hoping, wishing, dreaming. There's millions of people around the world in that position. The biggest misconception about money that you see most people have.
Biggest misconception.
About the way money works, wealth accumulation works.
Yeah. It's not as hard as people think to achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, money does solve problems. And when someone says it doesn't, they haven't given enough away.
Very true. Your biggest pet peeve?
Armchair quarterbacks.
Worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Worst piece of advice. I would say be more realistic. Stop dreaming.
The best decision you ever made in business?
To follow my gut, always.
9. When the Dean Graziosi legacy is done and your life's a wrap and Dean came here, lived his dream, manifested what he wanted to, left for his family, what do you hope the Dean Graziosi legacy is all about when all is said and done?
If I broke that in 2 parts, one would be a connected, engaged father that left his kids. What I always teach my kids is I want us to be a relay race. If I raise my kids right, and someday you're interviewing one of my children, is I ran the first leg of the relay and I handed them the baton, but they keep running. They're not just the trust fund kids who spend dad's money, but they take the baton and go faster, quicker. I want them to be more successful, happier, better looking than ever. I just want them better.
Yeah.
So that would be the greatest legacy of them all. And secondly, that I contributed to humanity.
And last but not least, what you hope people who go through the Own Your Future challenge get out of it and walk away from it, really experiencing in their life.
Is that once you have a path and a plan and the confidence to shift and pivot isn't scary. In fact, it's an absolute must to reach your full potential.
I love it. Thank you so much
Appreciate
for
you,
being
man.
on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. And also, I will see you guys in the Own Your Future Challenge. Again, you can check it out at the link on the screen here or in the description below. Dean will be there and some world changers will be there as well, helping you take your life and your business to the next level. Till next time, live strong, live with passion, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Thank you so much for enjoying this video. And if you found this content valuable, uplifting, and inspiring to take your life and your business to the next level, then I have some exciting news for you. Because the Passionate Few Academy officially launched our brand new on-demand training that you can access absolutely free at www.tpfacademy.com. Right there, you'll learn the #1 way to grow your personal brand or business brand online fast. The same way I've learned from interviewing some of the most successful people on the planet right here on the show who've done exactly that. So again, don't forget to check it out, www.tpfacademy.com. I promise you'll be blown away. And also, don't forget, there's 3 ways you can connect with me further. #1, you can text me absolutely free at the number on the screen right now and send me your most pressing life, business, or branding question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. #2, if you'd like to be interviewed on the show, you can actually apply right now in the description below and apply to share your incredible story, brand, or business right here with an audience of potentially millions of people, the same way we've helped experts, entrepreneurs, and authors just like you. And don't forget, that opportunity comes
with the ability to partner with us and help feed 1 million people through our partnership with Feeding America. Again, you can click the link in the description below titled Interview Application to find out more. And last but not least, number 3, if you'd like to get consulting from our team and work with you to help you grow your personal brand or business brand, no matter what industry you're in, we can do that by simply filling out the questionnaire in the description below titled Consulting Application. And if our team thinks that you'd be a great fit, who knows, you may just be invited to work with us to help you take your business to the next level. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for enjoying this video. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn on post notifications so you never miss an episode. And until next time, live strong, live with passion, and I'll see you in the next inspiring video.